everybody. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new episode. So what's on deck tonight? Folks, we've had some interesting stories popping up in the world of horror over here in the last week, and I've picked a few out that we have to discuss tonight here in Horror News. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump on into things. Some of you might not know that Trauma Entertainment, along with Legendary Pictures, have been working on a remake of the Trauma classic, The Toxic Avenger, about the lowly janitor who gets thrown into a bathtub full of toxic waste and then returns to take his revenge out on those who bullied him and those terrorizing his town. Now, again, Trauma and Legendary actually had this remake film starring Peter Dinklage, Elijah Wood, and Kevin Bacon. The film's been done since 2021, but it's been sitting on the shelves as nobody has been wanting to pick it up for distribution. The high amount of violence and blood and gore and brutality in it has apparently turned a number of distributors off, so it's been searching for a home, and it's been feared that it would end up just going to movie hell permanently, that we'd never get a chance to see it like so many Warner Brothers movies of the last few years. But Bloody Disgusting's parent company, Cineverse, has stepped in to save the day, as it had been announced that Cineverse has picked up the distribution rights for the Toxic Avenger remake, and it will be receiving a theatrical release here in 2025, unrated. Now, this is pretty big because we know Cineverse has been acquiring more and more movies for theatrical release over the year, including last year's record-breaking Terrifier 3, which has gone down as the highest grossing unrated film with a theatrical release. The Toxic Avenger, which is also now getting an unrated release theatrically as well too, could be poised to take out Art the Clown, but either way, it's so cool that we're finally gonna get a chance to get our eyes onto this remake. You know, I'm a fan of the original Toxic Avenger. I can't lie and say that I put much stock into the rest of the franchise, the cartoon, the other movie, you know, whatever. It brings me back to that time set of movies like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Little Shop of Horrors. Like, I love the feel of horror movies from around that time. And this is one that I haven't watched in years. So a remake, honestly, is the best way for me to go about it, just because I feel that it's best for me to jump into whatever the story is going to be that they're adapting it to, and then go back and catch the original. So you best believe, folks, later on this year, we are absolutely dropping reviews for the new and the original Toxic Avenger movies. Stay tuned for those for sure, folks. Now, our next story tonight concerns Scream 7. Folks, the latest installment in the long-running franchise kicked off filming last week with longtime Scream alum Kevin Williamson behind the camera in the director's chair, and Guy Busick also back in writing duties. This film has been dealing with a number of controversies over the last year or so as it's been trying to get made. It's had different directors attached to it, different scripts attached to it, different actors attached to it as well. And one of the bigger stories that have been popping up was whether or not we'd see the return of Patrick Dempsey's Mark Kincaid from Scream 3. This character was introduced as an LAPD cop who was assigned to the Ghostface murders going on during that film, and eventually, as we're led to believe, struck up a bit of a romance with Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. Now, since then, this character has never returned, and there haven't been any kind of direct references to him until we got Scream 5. Now, Scream 5 mentioned that Sidney was married and had some kids with a man named Mark. And most fans who are aware of Scream 3 existence, whether you like it or hate it, I am the fan of absolutely loving it, would assume that the only other Mark that we've come in contact with over the course of this franchise is Mark Kincaid. And again, there was the romance that was hinted towards the end of Scream 3, so it's not hard to believe that we just said those two characters got together, they're living together now, have kids. The Radio Silence team even confirmed that I was supposed to be Mark Kincaid as well. But either way, we found out last week that Mark is returning for Scream 7, but it is not Patrick Dempsey's Mark Kincaid. Instead, this will be a different character named Mark, played by Joel McHale. Now, you know Joel McHale from recent horror films like It's a Wonderful Knife, or deliver us from evil. And I feel bad for the guy because I know when this news got announced, he had to be catching so many strays there from folks who wanted to see Patrick Dempsey back. I wanted to see Patrick Dempsey back in the Scream franchise, but I think a lot of people would probably put stock into the idea that maybe this was intended to be Mark Kincaid literally up until filming started, and because Dempsey decided not to return, that Kevin Williamson made the decision to ultimately just scrub that character and turn it into a completely different Mark instead. So on one hand, that's a really good thing because that could very much mean that Mark Kincaid might not have been as necessary to Scream 7 as we all wanted him to be. And that poses the question to all of you of, did you want Patrick Dempsey to show back up just to be killed off, to not really offer any kind of importance to that story at all? Because that obviously was a big possibility for us to get here. So for those of us who really enjoy Scream 3 a lot, did we really want to see Patrick Dempsey showing back up just to be killed off? There's a good chance that might have been what went down here. Now, you never know if a cameo could show up here with Patrick Dempsey getting some time in his schedule, but either way, Mark is coming to Scream 7. It's just not the Mark that we expected. We're going to give it a chance, though, just because Joel McHale has been solid again in the horror films that he's been in. Overall, I feel he is a solid actor in any of the projects that I've watched with him in as well, too. He's funny, which can absolutely add to the tone of Scream, and he gets across terror really well, as he did in the horror movies I mentioned that we've seen him in as well, too. So I don't think it's a bad addition to the cast, but I do understand the disappointment people are going to have without getting McDreamy back into this role. And our third and final story tonight concerns the upcoming film adaptation of the 2015 PlayStation game Until Dawn. Now, David F. Sandberg, who's brought us a horror classic like Lights Out, also the recent Shazam series, is here in directorial duties, along with Blair Butler from Attack of the Show and Gary Dauberman, who brought us the recent Salem's Lot adaptation, It Chapter 2, Annabelle Comes Home, amongst a number of others, is on writing duties. Now, if you played the PlayStation game before, you're directing a set of characters who head up to a snow lodge celebrating the anniversary of the death of one of their friends and her sister. And when they get there, they find out that they're being targeted by a group of serial killers, which then leads them to find out they're also being targeted by some mythical creatures that live up there on the mountain as well, too, the Wendigo. Now, if you haven't played this game before, I highly, highly recommend it. My one regret of the Until Dawn video game is that I got all but, I think, one character out of there alive, but it had appearances from actors like Hayden Panettiere and Oscar winner Rami Malek as well, too. And a lot of folks are wondering whether we were going to get that one-to-one adaptation here of that game in the film, or if it was going to go to something else. And over the course of production, there was a lot of rumors coming out that this was going to diverge from the games fairly heavily. Movies based on games, especially like this, I feel are already fighting against the curve because it's not a known property. And without that named property like a Pokemon or a Super Mario or a Sonic the Hedgehog or something along those lines, you're gonna need to put the best production value into this and have a really damn good story to get folks locked onto it. And sometimes that means you can't just adapt what's in those games. And hearing that what Until Dawn is doing is taking a lot of the elements of the game and putting that in there while changing the story still allows it to really give us what we expected from that game and ergo the movie in the first place. The idea that these characters are going to relive the same day over and over and over and keep getting killed multiple ways, that ties into the game perfectly, because that's what we're doing a lot of the time in these games, is that we're trying to figure out how to make it through and a character gets killed, and then you can have a choice to go back and reload an older game and save them, or just keep on pressing on. And in the movie here, you don't have the option, obviously, of reloading and trying something different. And so we're still getting what makes Until Dawn work so well. And not only that, Peter Stormare is showing up in this as well, too, as a character named Hill. Now remember, he worked pretty much as the narrator, as the person guiding your choices over the course of the Until game, as a character named Dr. Hill instead. So we don't know what the connection that this character has to it, but the trailer looked really fun and enjoyable to me. It had the elements from the game that I was looking for, and even though we're not getting that story told the same way, I still think that there's a strong story here to be told. So who knows? We're going to find out late April as it debuts this year, folks. So stay tuned because we're going to have a review dropping for that, and I'm going to be taking a look into the game as well. That's going to do it for me tonight, folks. I hope I told you something new that you weren't already aware about here in the world of horror. Let me know in the comment section what you want to talk about here that I'm not covering in my horror news lately, because there's always something else that we could discuss. Let me know that in the comment section, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Folks, you can hit subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching. The best way to stay on top of everything I'm dropping for you, though, is to get subscribed to my link tree. You can do that by going to linktr.ee/tscarymovie. If you get subscribed, that's going to give you access to the YouTube page for video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms for audio-only versions of the show, to my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings through the year, to my TikTok page for footage including full episodes, movie premieres, and movie news, to my Twitch page for horror gaming including Until Dawn and Phasmophobia, and to my Fangoria shop page where you can enjoy a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Hit that subscribe button, folks, as the more subscribers I get, the more content I'm putting out for all of you. And stay tuned as we got more reviews dropping for Mayfair Witches, Dexter Original Sin, George A. Romero's Resident Evil, Companion. We got so much stuff coming up here. I don't want you to miss any of that, folks. But that's it tonight. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.